And now broadcasting from the EFX Sports studio, it's ESPN EFX Sports Radio with Dr. Jeff Golini.
Well, welcome to EFX Sports Radio. My name is Dr. Jeff Golini, and I'm here as usual with my co-host, Mr. Brian Andrews.
As I like to say, in the digital flesh. Now, ironically, you caught me sipping on some protein, which is our topic today.
Oh, you do a little sipping, huh?
Doing some sipping on the good stuff. Got to grow.
That's what we call it. See, when we need that little extra boost, we talk about sipping. So, yeah, we're going to talk about protein today, the most important and crucial nutrient to muscle building. I mean, without protein, you don't have no muscles.
Well, it's that, but it's funny. I think protein is definitely one of the most misunderstood components, too.
Absolutely.
A lot of myths.
Absolutely. And I think depending on who you talk to, people have misconceived notions about, first of all, what are good protein sources. Sometimes when we say protein, they just think protein drinks. They forget that there's protein coming from foods. So I want to talk a little bit about, how much protein does an athlete need? Now, obviously, this does depend on your sport, but kind of the rule of thumb for setting your protein intake is 1.5 grams of protein per pound of body weight. If you're trying to gain weight, then you take that calculation times what weight you want to get to. So, for instance, if you weigh 200 pounds, but you want to be 220, you do your calculations off 220. And then you got to be careful not to take in a whole lot of protein at one time. It's better to take in, 5 to 6 smaller meals spaced out. About 35 grams is a good amount of protein per sitting, to make sure that your body will absorb that.
Yeah, and so you say you think it's based on basically body weight. I'm just curious, what about someone who's say grossly overweight?
Yeah, again, it depends on what you're trying to do. If you're an athlete, you probably aren't going to be grossly overweight. So if you're someone who is overweight and you're trying to lose some weight, or if you are an athlete who's trying to drop some pounds, again, you got to be careful, because if you lower your protein during any type of diet regimen, you can lose muscle mass. So again, if you're just sediment, you don't do anything, you don't lift, 1 gram is plenty. But if you're an athlete, I still think you need to stay at that 1.5 grams, just kind of, again, as a good starting point. Some people can use a little bit more, but that's kind of my rule of thumb, to make sure you get adequate amounts of protein. Now, that doesn't mean that if you go have a steak and it's 150 grams that you should only eat, 2 ounces. That's just throughout the day. You want to make sure that you get adequate. So even if you do have a big protein meal, I still only count that as about 35 grams, because that's all at one sitting. Who knows how much you're actually going to absorb of that, even though it tastes good. So anyhow, I like steak. Brian, what's your favorite food sources of protein?
I mean, I can tell you, for me personally, I love chicken. It's easy to cook. You can make it all kinds of ways with spices, maybe a little barbecue sauce, but that's kind of my protein of choice. But then, again, we live in the age of technology. I like protein powders. It's funny, some people are heavily against taking a protein powder as a supplement, but I don't get that either. Again, we're talking about technology and convenience. You can drink a drink in 30 seconds as opposed to even eating a chicken breast.
At the end of the day, it's food. Your body really doesn't know the difference between all these different sources. It all comes down to convenience and how well and easy it is absorbed. But I'll have to agree with you. I do like protein powder also. And I like chicken. Fish is okay. I ate so much fish when I bodybuilded that, for the longest time, I couldn't even open a can of tuna fish, let alone look at it.
Well, and fish is definitely good for you, but I know it's one of those things, if you're really on a strict diet, it is a fabulous food. It just doesn't fill you up. You don't feel satiated.
Oh, yeah, you got to eat so much, and it's kind of like Chinese food. 10 minutes later, you're ready to eat again.
And frankly, it smells funny.
Yeah. One of the things I do sometimes, again, trying to get my protein into my diet. In the morning, I always eat egg whites. That has been my breakfast of choice, for 20-some years. But some mornings, if I start real early, I'm just not that hungry. So I'll take my oatmeal and I'll add my protein powder to my oatmeal. And man, it's good. tastes like you put milk on there. If you use a flavored one, it gives you a little sweet oatmeal. But then you get your protein with your oatmeal, and it goes down really easy.
Right, that's right. And, again, we're talking primarily about athletes and to athletes. And I think, when you're in the athlete frame of mind, you're looking at food strictly as fuel. It's not so much the taste, as the average Joe would want, a delicious everything. And there's ways to get around that, to kind of straddle the fence. But again, if you look at it purely as fuel, you're going to pick your best choices. Like we said, the fish, chicken, even some steak every now and then. You just feel stronger when you eat red meat.
Oh, yeah, lean beef is great. And, don't ruin your food by taking, a great piece of protein, chicken. We usually like the breast, but there's nothing wrong with the dark meat. And then deep fry it, or go to KFC. I mean, you just ruin some protein.
Yeah, you're undoing it.
You didn't really ruin the protein, but what you did is you just added a whole bunch of fat to that lean protein source. That's going to slow up the absorption. You're probably going to get fat. It's not healthy for you. So again, grilling, baking, things that aren't deep fried, and that goes for any protein source, eh?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And it's about time to go to break. And I think when we get back, I want to hit you with a question. I said earlier I was sipping on some of our protein. Let's talk about the actual supplements. I'm talking about protein powders. There's a billion of them on the market, and I think people are just woefully confused on what they should be looking for, how much should they pay, brands, that whole thing. So let's pick it up from there when we get back.
Sounds good.
Hey everybody, I'm Billy Gordon. I'm one of the coaches for the Heights Wrestling Club. I just wanted to take a minute and talk to you about EFX Sports and what their products have done for me and my wrestlers and the athletes that I lead. 6 months ago, I got introduced to EFX Sports and I immediately started using them myself. The results have been nothing short of amazing. My body fat and weight have come down drastically. My strength has increased. If you get the opportunity, I highly recommend you give it a shot.
This is Dr. Jeff Golini of All American Pharmaceutical. I'm sure you've been seeing our national brand EFX Sports featuring Carbolin and Crealkaline all around the state lately. Our supplements are formulated for pros to high schoolers to just the average gym goer and are all about improving your game. You can find EFX Sports in Billings at Yellowstone Fitness, Lucky's, Bonanza's Health Food, Granite Fitness, and GNC, just to mention a few.
Do you know how to properly use carbohydrates to ignite your performance in the field and in the gym? You will now, thanks to this free book by EFX Sports. The Carb User's Guide for Maximum Performance reveals why omitting carbohydrates from your diet can totally crush your gains. Ever wonder how many grams you need for your specific sport? Not anymore. We give you the critical number you need to dominate your competition. You'll even discover the super carb that's taking the athletic world by storm. You must try it to believe it. Go to getcarbolin.com/carb guide today and get your copy absolutely free. Once again, it's GETKARBOLYN.com/CARBGUIDE.
Well, welcome back to EFX Sports Radio. We're talking about protein.
Good old protein.
So you want to talk about protein powders on the market, I think, before we went into break?
Yes, absolutely. You go into the big box stores or even just your local health food store, and it's going to be a wall full of these things. And I know to the average consumer, they just look like they're all the same. So you're going to start looking at price, and then you're going to say, oh, well, this is what's called an isolate, or here's a concentrate, hydrolysate. I mean, there's all these different scientific sounding things. What does someone need to know to get a good deal? I mean, that's something their body is actually going to be able to utilize.
Well, the first thing to separate, the proteins into two categories. If the protein is cheap, 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 then it's cheap. I have a problem with the Walmarts, the big box stores, the wholesale clubs that, you can go in there and buy protein at a ridiculous price. There's a reason. Brian, how many class action lawsuits do you think are going on right now against these protein companies?
Oh my gosh! It's funny. You beat me to it. I was going to bring that up and have you speak to that a little bit, but I know there are multiple lawsuits going on out there that people don't even know about.
I lost track of it, and everyone thinks that our industry is a bunch of crooks. We're unregulated. Not true. I was out at a medical conference last week, and I was talking with a couple of pharmaceutical guys from Merck. And that was the first thing they brought up is, oh, man, you guys don't do any research and you're unregulated. And I had to provide them with a little bit of education that, hey, look, our industry is more regulated than your industry. And I went on to tell him why. The problem, like in the drug industry, there are a lot of bogus counterfeit drugs on the marketplace. You just don't hear about it. But when somebody cheats in the supplement industry, oh, the whole industry is bad. Well, that's not true. And that's what's going on right now. Is there are a lot of crooks in the supplement industry. Unfortunately, a handful of manufacturers are making all of these big brands, so it makes it look like, it's our entire industry. But what they're doing is they're taking protein powder and they're either cutting it with maltodextrin, sugar, some filler, or they're spiking it with some amino acid to elevate that nitrogen level. So if you were to test it, it would look like all your protein is there. But most of these are 10, 15% of the label claim. That is just outright terrible.
Oh, and just so our listeners know, you are actually quoted on Forbes magazine as an industry expert on this very topic regarding these suits.
Absolutely. Showing that, All American Pharmaceutical and EFX Sports, we do it right. Does it cost? Absolutely. But you know what? If you go for a good steak dinner, it costs money versus going for a cheap one. There are some places, even here in Billings, that I don't frequent because, you can get a T-bone steak for $9.99. I'm sorry, man. It tastes like a piece of cardboard. I will pay $20 or $25 for a good tasting steak that's been aged. It's got everything there. It tastes good. But say with protein, don't buy that cheap stuff because it's cheap. It's cut, guaranteed. So getting back to, what are the best sources, it all comes down to any protein, how well you absorb it. And proteins are measured by several different score systems. PER, or protein efficiency rating, meaning how efficiently your body can utilize it, or biological value, how well it can absorb it. Whey proteins are usually monitored by the biological value. And essentially, when you eat protein, if you don't absorb it, it comes out of the colon. And if you have high protein intake in your feces, that means you have not absorbed that protein very well. So all proteins are measured. So with that saying, from a protein powder, I really like whey protein because it's got a high biological value. It tastes good. Your body can utilize it. It's relatively low in lactose, so if you have a lactose intolerant, but it gets in the system relatively quick compared to other protein sources.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I would also recommend shop around. In other words, try a few different brands, and you will see, you can feel the difference when you're really using the good stuff, and it'll start making you think twice about certain brands, certain types that maybe the label looks all shiny, it looks legit. You're probably getting ripped off.
Yeah, and if you buy from like a vitamin shop, someplace, or your local health food store, where they take a little more time qualifying the brands. They're a little bit more expensive, but at least they're good qualified brands. And of course, you can always count on EFX Sports. We do our own manufacturing, so we're about quality. Do you pay? Absolutely. It's not the cheapest protein on the market, but it's very competitive for a high quality protein. But like Brian said, it tastes good, and you can feel the difference. If you are not gaining muscle size from your protein supplement, then you aren't taking in protein. If you're just gaining weight, guarantee it's cut with fillers, sugars, protein, starches, and what have you.
Well, and some people are going to notice too, like when they switch off of whatever brand they're on now and they start taking ours, is how easily it is to digest. And what I mean is they don't feel gassy, crampy, that type of thing.
Yeah, that's from all the fillers, whether it be a cheap protein source. Whey protein concentrate, is typically anything from 34% protein up to about 80%. And what that means is the total protein content. So the higher the protein content, the better the protein. A lot of people are putting in 34% whey proteins, you're getting 70-some% lactose. That's what causes you stomach discomfort, bloating, gas. So again, that's kind of an indication that something is not digesting very well. You should be able to digest whey protein very, very good.
Well, and so based on that, is it something where I should look for an isolate? I mean, is it worth? Because I know it's not cheap to pay that much more.
No, isolates, again, an isolate is anything from 85 to 90% protein. So what happens is during that filtration process, you get to a certain point, which costs money, to filter out about 80% protein. You then run it back through the process to get to about 90%. So essentially you're getting another 10% protein. You're taking out now all the vitamins, minerals, lactose. So, there is some benefit to it, but is it a better protein? Not really. Not for the cost. It's just way too expensive to get an extra 10% of protein. And again, that's just kind of my cost. I do like whey protein isolates, but they're just not very cost effective, to be able to utilize, 24, 30 grams at a sitting.
Yeah, so if you just go strictly from that example you give, and I know this is very simplistic, but it's really kind of the difference between, say, 2% milk and then skim milk.
Or 2% and 1%. I mean, they're very, very close unless you have a real reason, like, you're really sensitive to lactose.
I just know there's some industry gurus that really hit on this whole isolate concentrate thing, and they'll slam brands for saying, oh, you got a concentrate that's not as good. I mean, as an athlete, again, we all want that edge, but are they really going to see that much of a difference by spending that much more money?
Absolutely not. I mean, you won't even notice the difference other than the taste, or if you have some sensitivity to lactose. That's the only difference. It's the same quality protein that would be in those two types of protein. So again, our NF Pro right now, is a whey protein concentrate, very, very high quality. If we were to make it into a whey protein isolate, you would not really notice the difference, but it would increase the price almost doubled. I mean, that's how expensive it is.
So that actually brings up a good point, going back to the protein spiking and all that, is I've been to a lot of stores where the isolates are selling at the same price as the concentrate. So you kind of go, wait a minute. Again, we know the cost of these things. There's no way they're getting that, a full amount of protein in that thing. It's got to be cut or something. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, heck no. Or it's just concentrate. I mean, again, it doesn't matter what business you're in, cars, batteries, food. People lie. There's cheaters in every business. But yeah, if you can buy an isolate for the same price as a concentrate, guarantee you it's not an isolate. It's either pure concentrate or it's cut, because again, it's more expensive. We work directly with all of the cheese manufacturers. One of the big ones is Glambia. So we know what all the pricing is from every manufacturer, not only in the USA, but coming outside the country. And even the stuff coming in from outside of the country is rubbish. It's cut, it's been heat processed, or it's from buffalo, or it's some other weird source, which again isn't as high quality as cow milk.
Yeah, well, and we got this little thing now called the internet, where you can do a lot of searching for yourself. I mean, it's worth taking the time to research and see who you really can trust, what works and what doesn't, because at the end of the day, it's your dollar.
Absolutely. Hey, if you guys want to try the EFX Sports, again, I'm very partial to that, because if there was something better, I'd be making it. There's an 800 number on the site, aaefx.com. Give a call, and they'll send you out a sample. Try it for yourself. I mean, again, you should be able to take one serving of a protein, and you should be able to feel the difference, not only from a digestibility, but just the fact that you feel good. And
always see and taste the difference. You will feel it.
Yeah, don't take our word, man. Try it for yourself.
Absolutely. Well, look, it's time to wrap up. I just want to say thanks, everybody, for listening, and I hope you got some good value out of this. And of course, we can't cover everything in one shot for protein, so feel free to, like you said, call us, email us if you have any specific questions, any other topics you think we could talk about that are of interest to you as an athlete. That's what we're here for. So thanks, Jeff. It's been another great show. Looking forward to the next one. We got some cool guests coming up.
We do. I'll catch you next week, Brian.
All right, Jeff, take care.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to ESPN EFX Sports Radio. Be sure to check out EFX Sports online at aaefx.com. And don't forget to check out EFX Sports supplements everywhere fitness products are sold.